A secret society known as the Illuminati is the subject of some of the world's biggest conspiracy theories. Some people say they pull the strings of empire behind the scenes of governments across the globe. Are they real or just made up? Sophia Smith Galer looks at where the current Illuminati conspiracy actually stems from. CNN's Alisyn Camerota also talks to former QAnon believer Melissa Rein Lively as she speaks about falling into the pitfalls of political conspiracy theories. Let's get into it.
They are the secret society at the center of some of the world's biggest conspiracy theories. People say they pull the strings behind the scenes of governments across the globe. I speak, of course, of the Illuminati. Could they be real, or are they just another made-up conspiracy theory? Let's find out in today's episode of
Colossal Mysteries.
Today we talk about the Illuminati like it's something out of science fiction. But in fact, the shadowy secret society was once a very real group with very lofty goals. The real-world Illuminati operated from 1776 until 1785 in and around parts of modern-day Germany. Their members were some of the most influential philosophers, writers, politicians, and intellectuals of the day. They were also called the Bavarian Illuminati, and mainly worked to oppose the Catholic Church's control over government, science, philosophy, and art. They believed that people should be allowed to think freely, women should be educated and treated as equals, and promoted freedom and equality for everyone. The group was started by a man named Adam Weishaupt, who was a strong believer in all of these ideas and was looking for a way to get them out wider into the world. So on May 1st, 1776, the Order of the Illuminati was founded by 5 original members. Despite the group's incredibly lofty goals, they never had quite the influence or membership they needed. Even at its zenith, the Bavarian Illuminati only had about 2,000 or so members, though they did try to gain new members by infiltrating other popular societies like the Freemasons. Like most secret societies, they had some strange rituals. Their symbol was an odd-looking Owl of Atlantis, or Owl of Minerva as it's also called, the symbol of knowledge. They would use odd nicknames to avoid detection and employed all sorts of spy tactics to keep things secret. Despite all their efforts and grandiose goals, the Bavarian Illuminati never managed to come close to controlling the world. You see, in 1784, the Bavarian rulers banned all secret societies, including the newly minted Illuminati. The government started hunting for members, causing the group to scatter and disband. Homes were searched, documents were seized, and if you believe the historians, the Illuminati were quickly wiped out. So that's where the Illuminati conspiracy started. But how did it go from a run-of-the-mill secret society to the mega conspiracy and symbols we associate with the Illuminati today? You can thank a trilogy of novels from the mid-70s for that. The Illuminatus trilogy is a satirical science fiction fantasy story about the Illuminati that made up most of the modern symbols we associate with them, like pyramids, triangles, and all-seeing eyes. So is there a chance that the modern Illuminati might be real? No. But remember, there's plenty of ways to brainwash the masses without needing a secret society. And now you know the truth about the Illuminati. Comment below with a mystery you'd like us to solve. And remember to subscribe for more episodes of
Colossal Mysteries.
Only on DreamWorks TV.
Is Jay-Z really in the Illuminati? Is Donald Trump? Is Katy Perry? Am I?
Everyone from the BBC to Beyoncé has been accused of being part of the Illuminati, a secret group said to comprise of the world's most powerful people seeking to establish a new world order.
Even if you haven't heard of the Illuminati, chances are you've probably seen one of the symbols associated with them. Pentagrams, goats, even the all-seeing eye that's found on US banknotes.
References have also cropped up in music videos, such as Rihanna's S&M, which featured a fake newspaper with a headline declaring her Princess of the Illuminati.
So why do musicians and artists like to play around with references to the Illuminati?
I think quite simply, they're just having fun. They're just entertained by these stories, like many of us are. I'm reminded of a conspiracy theory from 1966 that Paul McCartney of the Beatles had died in a car crash on the way home after doing some recording. And he'd been replaced by a Canadian DJ who looked a lot like him and quickly learnt to play the bass and sing. Paul McCartney has never denied this conspiracy theory. He's always kept quiet about it. And I think McCartney, like Jay-Z, Rihanna and others, is just entertained by the story.
So who are the Illuminati? Are they really a shadowy elite who control the world?
The Illuminati were, to the best of our knowledge, a Bavarian secret society formed in the 18th century. It opposed superstition, religious influence, and state authority. They even created a rule book which stated that the order of the day is to put an end to the machinations of the purveyors of injustice, to control them without dominating them. The Bavarian group eventually faded into irrelevance and has nothing to do with modern concepts of the Illuminati.
The conspiracy theory that we know about today stems from the Discordian movement. The story goes that Discordianism began in 1965 in the office of a Texas drug attorney.
Two schoolmates, Greg Hill and Kerry Thornley, used the office photocopier to publish copies of the Principia Discordia, the movement's founding text. The book promoted the idea that chaos is as important as order, and Discordianism gathered steam throughout the 60s and 70s, with Hill and Thornley actively trying to cause mischief and spread disinformation. Their mission was expanded even further by two other Americans, a writer called Robert Anton Wilson and his friend Robert Shea.
Wilson was editor at Playboy, and the two of them decided they would write a novel and they would throw all of the great conspiracy theories into this novel and call it Illuminatus. And in fact, they enjoyed it so much they turned it into a trilogy. They decided that it would be fun to try and spread a little chaos and misinformation deliberately about the Illuminati. And they did this by writing letters to the mainstream press, by writing letters to fanzines, which were popular at the time, but also through the letters page of Playboy itself.
They would also write in letters from imaginary readers saying that the Illuminati weren't real at all, or were kind of sitting on the fence. It didn't really matter. What did matter is that all these people seemed to be generating this conversation about the Illuminati, and the idea was that you, as the reader, were supposed to question that, interrogate it, ask, are they really real?
The myth travelled far and wide. Wilson and Shea's The Illuminatus trilogy attributed some of the mysteries of the time, such as who shot John F. Kennedy, to the Illuminati.
Although the multitude of conspiracy theories that appear in the trilogy are imaginary, they're blended with enough truth to make them seem plausible.
Probably the oddest theory was the suggestion that Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati, assassinated George Washington and assumed his identity as President of the USA. Believers of this theory point to Washington's portrait on the US $1 bill, which they suggest is actually the face of Weishaupt. Despite its lack of mainstream sales, the trilogy became a cult favourite. It was even made into a mammoth 8-hour stage play in Liverpool, launching the careers of British actors Bill Nighy and Jim Broadbent. The 70s print magazine culture seems distant now from our globalised, hyper-connected internet, but Illuminati rumours are still rife on websites such as 4chan and Reddit, where believers swap their favourite versions of the conspiracy and champion evidence to prove it's still in existence.
Ultimately, it's not down to a shadowy elite whether you choose to believe in the Illuminati conspiracy theory or not. It's up to you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications for new videos. See you again soon.
Bill Gates, Beyonce, Oprah, The Infographic Show. For years, rumors have swirled that powerful organizations and celebrities have all been part of a global movement to control humanity and shape the way it thinks. In most cases, this movement takes the form of the infamous Illuminati, a group allegedly dedicated to absolute control over all mankind. But who actually are the Illuminati? What do they really want? And how do you know this video itself is not just more Illuminati propaganda meant to throw you off the scent from the truth? The name Illuminati actually comes from the Latin plural illuminatus, or enlightened. The name is inspired by the idea of enlightening oneself through knowledge, and would evolve to signify the breaking of a man's bonds of ignorance through education and reason. But it all started with one man who really hated his bosses. Adam Weishaupt was born in 1748, and in 1773 he gained employment at the University of Ingolstadt as a professor of canon law. Basically, the laws that govern canons both on a battlefield and on ships. Okay, fine, actually canon law is the guidelines and regulations which are established by a religious authority for the purpose of running a government of a religious organization. In essence, Weishaupt was an expert on church law, but was himself not actually a member of the clergy. This would be a bit of a problem in a university which was mostly run by clergy, and not just any clergy, but Jesuits. Jesuits were themselves established in the 16th century with the approval of Pope Paul III. Their official mission was global evangelization with a special focus in education and helping different sects of Christians to work together. Jesuits were sort of the SEAL Team 6 of Christianity, and were told to expect to go anywhere in the world and suffer any adversity for the sake of helping the poor and uneducated. Jesuits, however, soon became a thorn in the side of the European powers, as they were a little too good at their job. Jesuits established special settlements in many colonial territories and refused to allow the populations under their care to be enslaved as local governments and businessmen wished to. With slave labor being critical to the economies of far-flung colonies, Jesuits very quickly got a bad rap for standing in the way of economic progress. It should be noted that Jesuits weren't completely opposed to slavery. You have to remember that this was a time when slavery was a widespread and accepted practice. White Europeans themselves had been enslaved just several hundred years earlier. Jesuits were, however, opposed to the brutal conditions slaves endured, seeing no need for slaves to be treated like animals. Nothing, not even religion, can stand in the way of economic progress, so in 1773 Pope Clement XIV ordered the dissolution of the Jesuit order. However, in many places the Jesuits remained in power, such as the University of Ingolstadt, where Adam Weishaupt found himself teaching. Under attack from all sides, the Jesuits in control of the university attempted to suppress any staff that wasn't part of the clergy, including Weishaupt himself. Frustrated by what he believed were outdated views, Weishaupt turned to Freemasonry, but by this point the Freemason order had become a day club for rich kids who wanted to play at philosophy, as opposed to today where it's a day club for bored middle-aged men who want to play at philosophy. Unsatisfied, Weishaupt decided he'd make his own, even cooler club, and only his very best friends or those he thought worthy could join. At first, 6 to 9 of Weishaupt's best buds joined his secret new club, which Weishaupt created in order to spread the ideas of enlightenment. Despite what your edgelord Facebook bestie might rant about on his wall, the Illuminati wasn't interested in liberating man from religion, but rather wished to reform the way that religion was practiced and imposed. Weishaupt believed that science and religion should be partners, not competitors, in defining the world, and that people should have a free choice when it came to either. The first Illuminati had 3 membership tiers: Novice, Minerval, and Illuminated Minerval, with Minerval referring to the Roman goddess of wisdom Minerva. The goal was to create a state of liberty and moral equality. The only problem was that the powers that be had little interest in such a radical agenda for the time. If commoners were free after all, well then how could they possibly be exploited for personal gain? This is an idea free market capitalists struggle with to this day. Heavily influenced by Freemasonry, or really just blatantly ripping it off, Weishaupt created a series of elaborate rituals to be practiced at Illuminati meetings. Members were given secret names taken out of their favorite parts of antiquity. Weishaupt himself, for example, took the name of Spartacus, no doubt because he saw himself as leading a rebellion of mental slaves fighting for their freedom. As the membership roster grew from 9 individuals to 2,500 though, it was clear more ranks were needed, and Weishaupt created 13 degrees of initiation split up into 3 classes. The first few orders of initiates were known as Illuminatus Minor. Then came the Illuminatus Dirigens, And lastly, the top tier of Illuminati were simply known as the Kings. We're not saying Weishaupt lost the plot somewhere along the way, but a man who set out to enlighten people and free them from oppressive government and ideology both ended up making a secret society where he was king. And that really speaks to the futility of man. So what did the Illuminati actually do? Well, they attempted to spread the ideas of enlightenment and reform through the upper crust of European society, but were never in fact any way close to political power of their own. The high point of this secret society would come in 1777 when Charles Theodore took the throne of Bavaria and used the opportunity to spread the same liberal values the Illuminati themselves were espousing. However, Charles Theodore would prove to be a weak monarch, and soon the ruling elites pressured him to back off the liberalization of Bavaria. This would eventually lead to a direct crackdown on the Illuminati itself, with their liberal agenda deemed a danger to the security and safety of the state. The Illuminati basically killed itself, as its members boasted publicly of the power they wielded, though they wielded little said power, and openly criticized the monarchy, something that only America could afford to do because it was exactly thousands of miles away from the nearest monarch. Membership lists of Illuminati members began to be leaked to the public, and the discovery of many Illuminati in positions of moderate power led to a general panic over secret societies among the ruling elite. Charles Theodore banned any and all secret societies, causing Weishaupt to flee for his life. Today, the Illuminati are blamed for everything from war to poverty in third world nations to Harambe. And yet the historical fact is the Illuminati was never more than a moderately successful boys' club that managed to wield a small amount of power in Bavaria before it was disbanded. Conspiracy theories nevertheless abound concerning a modern Illuminati, probably because it's more comfortable for people to believe that even when insane, really stupid stuff is being done by our governments, it's because someone is secretly pulling the strings to a master plan, instead of the simple truth that sometimes we put idiots in charge. But then again, that's exactly what we'd say if we were secretly part of the Illuminati. Now go watch super secret societies that pull strings without you knowing. Or watch this other video instead. Obey.
An Arizona woman says last year she became brainwashed by QAnon's conspiracy theories, which led to this scene she made in Target at a display of face masks.
I've been looking forward to this all my life. So, Target, I'm not playing anymore. This all over. This
That video went viral, and her long fall down the QAnon rabbit hole nearly cost her her marriage and her career. Joining us now is that woman, Melissa Rein Lively. Melissa, what a story. Oh my gosh, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Melissa, what was happening in that video that we were seeing where you were destroying that rack of face masks? What were you trying to accomplish?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. You know, I had really lost all touch with reality. It was the worst day of my life. I was having a complete mental break. And really what had happened was I had fallen down the QAnon rabbit hole and fell hard, you know, and just lost it. I was completely triggered.
And after that moment, you then went home. You were still irrational, so much so that your husband called the police. We have some video of that too. You were just spouting crazy theories when the police showed up. You were clearly in distress, and they ended up having to take you in, I mean, for a mental evaluation, and I believe to a mental hospital. And so how did this happen, Melissa, that you fell so far down the conspiracy rabbit hole?
You know, I really became all consumed in the QAnon conspiracy theories because of a mix of fear, anxiety, depression, you know, uncertainty, inconsistency with the information coming out about the pandemic. I felt terrified. I was losing my business. I was watching people around me lose their business. I felt hopeless. I didn't know what to do. So I went to the internet. You know, it started innocently enough, you know, kind of poking around on spirituality and wellness and new age pages that, you know, are just things that I'm interested in anyway. And then, you know, as soon as the algorithm hooked me in, it really only took a matter of weeks until I was in this terrifying echo chamber that really, you know, completely changed the way that I think and the way that I processed information. And what people saw happen in my garage that day, I mean, truly with my husband, who's my absolute best friend, is an ultimate act of love and selfless service for another person, because he had to make a very difficult choice that day, to save my life. He had given me an ultimatum, it's this family, or QAnon. And because I had become so obsessed with it, the Save the Children messaging spoke so deeply to who I am as a person, and I just couldn't put it aside. It ruined me, and it really had a significant impact on my mental health.
And as you say, I mean, your husband tried everything to pull you out, calling the police, as we see there in that video of you in your garage. That was one of his, that was just one of the things that he tried. I mean, he really tried to pull you out. And as you say, the algorithm hooked you in. And so you got into this kind of pattern of doom scrolling and fear scrolling, and it just feeds on itself. And so what happened, Melissa? How did you break the spell?
Well, I had to make, a very serious decision for my health and my family. And that, was voluntarily, seeking mental health treatment. I went and I did a PTSD and trauma program, which was really ultimately what I was dealing with. And I was exacerbating the situation and some previous trauma and emotional stuff that, I had failed to deal with in my life. And I had to make the conscious choice to go and get help for that, and I invested myself into that program. I continue to go to therapy and slowly but surely, work to rebuild my life back. And I wrote a book about it. And I was really committed to helping other people escape from this, because I really believe that it's a cult. It operates like a cult in every single way. And people don't realize that they're being consumed by QAnon until it's too late.
And before we get to your advice for other people, if you hadn't gotten out, would you have been one of the people that we saw at the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol? Did you know that was happening? Were you planning to go there?
I wasn't aware of it back in July, when everything happened with me, and I've been on the road to recovery since last July. But I will say, it is incredibly scary how quickly people become radicalized and violent, as they kind of continue down the rabbit hole and lose trust with, other people and our institutions and the government and so on and so forth. And they feel compelled to take matters into their own hands. I sort of see my Target situation as my Capitol moment. I don't think I would have been at the Capitol, thank God, because my family did intervene, but, the damage had already been done, with the whole Target situation. But it's frightening. And I think that's the reason that my husband, felt so compelled to involve the police that day, is because I am such a peace-loving, sensitive person. And, I even got radicalized quickly to the point that I was destructive, I was violent, I was angry, I was defensive. So it is very, very frightening when you see a large amount of people attack, our government institution like our Capitol. It was very upsetting for me to see, because I know exactly how it happened.
Oh my gosh. And so, Melissa, what is your advice to other people who may have a family member or friends who have fallen into QAnon?
I speak to people every day, family members who say, what advice can you give my friend? Can you talk to my loved one, my sister, my mother? And it's heartbreaking. It gives me chills just thinking about it, because I know that these people have to be empowered to make the conscious choice to leave the cult themselves. The more that people, berate them, call them names, call them stupid, laugh at them, mock them, they are just going to dig their heels in harder and become more isolated, more scared, and more alone. So my advice is to love these people, understand these people, try to come to even ground and reason with them as best you can, find things, common ground, things that you can agree on, and start there, and really try to isolate what their fears are and what's motivating the irrational behavior and obsession with QAnon, because what you'll probably find out, it is motivated by fear, distrust, uncertainty, not necessarily hatred, not necessarily destruction. But these people can be helped, but they have to be empowered to do so.
Wow, that is such good advice. I mean, compassion and focus on their fears. Melissa Rein Lively, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Really incredible to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
In the aftermath of the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, investigators are trying to figure out what happened and how they missed the signs. But one group of Americans did not miss the signs. They saw it coming, and they see another violent battle brewing today. You're about to meet a group of 3 former QAnon followers and 3 people whose loved ones are still in the grip of QAnon's conspiracy theories. All of them tell us that the next alarming date comes this week, Thursday, March 4th, to be exact. QAnon has a new plan for violence and destruction, and they don't let reality get in their way. Does anybody understand what is supposed to be happening on March 4th?
Well, so March 4th, they're thinking that Donald Trump is going to come back and he's going to be the president. Apparently, what they said is way back when, it was like 1871. Inauguration Day used to happen on March 4th. And then Donald Trump will be back and he'll be inaugurated as either the 19th president of the United States Republic or the first president of some new something.
They also think that there's going to be this great financial reset, both in our country and around the world, where debts are just going to be forgiven, where if you have a mortgage, you don't owe on it anymore.
It's just so ludicrous, to put it bluntly. I mean, I still have family members that don't even believe that Joe Biden is president.
Charlotte, is it true that one of your sisters does not today believe that Joe Biden is president?
Yes, she tells her daughter that she thinks that the White House is a set and that Biden isn't actually president.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It is mind-boggling.
Well, the person that I started talking to anyways that had initially got me into QAnon, he was like, Joe Biden's not even real. Like, that's why he's wearing a mask all the time, because the fake face that he's wearing, the mouth doesn't move correctly when he talks. So they really believe that Joe Biden is not even Joe Biden.
Okay, so for those of you on the top row who did for a while fall into QAnon, did you ever understand who was running it? Did you ever know who Q was?
No. Mm-mm.
Jay, did you understand who was feeding this information and who the ringleader of it was?
No.
I didn't know that I was in a QAnon group until I got out of it. I had no idea that the information I got was QAnon information.
So, do you guys think that there are particular media types, media personalities, who also are a gateway to conspiracy theories and QAnon?
Newsmax, which is a TV station, definitely. Their reportings are really off the wall.
I can remember when Glenn Beck joined Fox News was when my mom became very susceptible to conspiracy theories. She hung on his every word. And then in the more recent years, it's been people like Tucker Carlson.
Definitely stuff like Fox News, One American News, OAN, stuff like this is the easiest way to get into that stuff now.
I found myself, eliminating 98% of media so I could exclusively watch, Fox News. And they tell you, don't go anywhere else. Keep your attention here. If you go to any of these other stations, it's fake news. And that is a huge part of what's radicalizing people.
In my Telegram chats and in my groups, the only outside media sources of getting information other than the group that they ever said we could, I guess, trust would have been Newsmax, or there's Right Side Broadcasting Network. I don't know if they're actually on TV. I know that they're on YouTube.
Show of hands, how many of you today think that we do have a domestic terrorism and or white supremacy problem in this country? All of you.
Just everything happened with Trump and, just his view on the whole thing. And it just really, ignite that fire of white supremacy and racism.
My concern is that a lot of the threads that weave a lot of these conspiracies together in the Q world are very thinly veiled white supremacy, very thinly veiled anti-Semitism.
When I was in these groups, I was like, no, we're not racist. I'm not sneaking out on Wednesday nights to KKK meetings. So I thought I wasn't racist. Being out of it, I have taken it upon myself to have conversations, and I've bought books and I'm reading and I am learning. But as far as domestic terrorism, I think QAnon is a domestic terrorist group.
Just seeing what some of the people say, there's a lot of anger and a lot of confusion. I think it's going to get worse. I worry about a lot of violence.
The conversations that's been said in these groups is when March 4th happens, if Trump isn't back, they need to start planning. And they will switch how they talk and communicate, whether it's online or over the phone. They're going to switch the meaning of their words so nobody can pick up and flag it.
I have already picked up on that.
Do you have any examples of that?
Speaking of a certain group of people that they consider less desirable, they will use the term Canadians.
So they don't like a particular demographic here in America.
Yes.
And they refer to them as Canadians.
Yes.
And is this a particular racial group?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Yes.
You have just this huge group of people that feel that their country is in danger, their children are in danger, their freedom is in danger. And so they feel like they have to go to war and they have to fight to get things back right.
I think the biggest thing, that we're looking at, especially coming out of the Capitol riots on January 6th, is that people are emboldened to take matters into their own hands.
I'm trying to warn everybody of what I see that's going to come. And if this group cannot be stopped, and when March 4th comes and goes, we're going to be hoping and praying that they push another date out there, because if not, the insurrection is going to be a drop in the bucket compared to what's going to happen.
I have to say that's the chilling part of this. The idea, the message, the uniform message from all of them, people who've been on the inside, is they think it's going to get worse.
Because our hope was, okay, people are being arrested. So after the insurrection at the Capitol, people are being arrested, maybe without, Trump, goading them on. Maybe it will die down. These are people with their finger on the pulse, and they don't think that it's dying down. And they don't hear in the chat rooms and from their relatives who are still in it that anything is dying down.
And look, the former president spoke to CPAC yesterday. His big coming out party was filled with the election lie, with the big lie, and that will be heard.